all of you disturbed individuals with possible mummy issues and homicidal tendencies. You have joined me for another video in my Spooktober lineup and another ranking video to boot. Today I am ranking the Psycho films from worst to best, and this ranking might surprise you. So time to dive into this ranking before Mother finds out. In 6th place is Psycho, released in 1998 and directed by Gus Van Sant with a screenplay by Joseph Stefano. It's a remake of the 1960 film, and in it an embezzler arrives at an old motel run by an insane killer named Norman Bates. Same opening, same font, same transitions, same typing, even the dialogue is majoritively the same. It's a shot-for-shot remake, mostly just with bad performances. The way the dialogue is delivered is horrendous, and using identical dialogue from a 1960 film for a 1998 film does not work. Certain words, certain discussions from the original reflected the time period, so having them in the remake feels like the entire film isn't aware of what year it is. Even the score doesn't work in this version. This entire film feels like the kid in class who stole their entire essay from the internet, then changed a couple words and handed it in to the teacher, passing it off as their own. Know what happens to those kids? They get big fat Fs, which is what this film deserves. Its biggest sin is that it took a good script and made it boring as hell. In 5th place is Psycho 4, The Beginning, released in 1990 and directed by Mick Garris and written by Joseph Stefano. It's the 4th installment in the Psycho film series, and in it Norman Bates recalls his childhood with his abusive mother while fearing his unborn child will inherit his split personality disorder. Honestly, the performances are good, but the dialogue for the flashbacks is insane. This film really goes over the top with Norman's backstory with his mother. It exaggerates so much and ignores most of what was established in the original film. On top of that, it seems to completely ignore the sequels for the sake of creating this elaborate backstory. Ignoring the sequels is one thing. Ignoring the original is so much worse. The flashbacks take place in the 40s and 50s, but there has been very little done to make those scenes feel as though they take place in the 40s or 50s. There were some nods here and there, but mostly they feel no different to the present timeline of the story. For someone who should be somewhat mentally stable, according to the story, Norman appears more psycho than ever. This just wasn't an enjoyable film at all, too all over the place. The psychiatrist in this film claims to be the same one who diagnosed Norman all those years ago, but he has a completely different name and isn't old enough at all. Not to mention the writing for him is terrible. He's written as a sexist jerk who doesn't know anything about psychology, and the writing for him ignores everything established in terms of psychology for Norman in the first film. Also, the statement saying women don't kill their mothers was just a stupid and factually incorrect statement to have him make. This film is truly stupid. Maybe Stephen King's favorite sequel, but it sure ain't mine. In 4th place is Bates Motel, released in 1989. It is a made-for-television drama directed and written by Richard Rothstein and is a spin-off of the Psycho film series. In it, a mentally disturbed man who roomed with the late Norman Bates at the state lunatic asylum inherits the legendary Bates Motel after the death of Norman and tries to fix it up to make it a respectable business. Oh no. No, 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 no. What in the holy heck was this? The world's most bizarre spin-off. First, it paints Norman as a saint, then it ignores the sequels, and after that, it becomes this happy, cheerful, comedic TV movie about dreams coming true and rebuilding and dodging bank employees, and focuses on a random character contemplating suicide who is visited by 20 ghosts of high school students who killed themselves telling her not to do it. Drama film? Yes. Horror film? Not in any way, shape, or form, though it definitely feels like the TV movie it is. God, even the music was so Lifetime. This was the crazy crap I expected from the sequel. This film was intended to be a pilot for a TV spin-off, but it performed so poorly they axed the idea. I can see why it did so poorly. Most Lifetime feel-good film I've ever seen outside of December. When I watch a horror or thriller film, I shouldn't feel good. Lori Petty, how could you? In 3rd place is Psycho 3, released in 1986 and directed by Anthony Perkins and written by Charles Edward Pogue. It's the 3rd film in the Psycho film series, and in it Norman Bates falls in love with a fallen nun who stays at the Bates Motel alongside a drifter and a curious reporter. Meanwhile, Mother is still watching. can't say I enjoyed this one very much. It felt like Perkins was trying too hard to replicate filming styles from the original Psycho and other films that most of it didn't go together. There was so much unnecessary religious iconography in this film and one too many side characters and plots that had no real purpose being there. Then they decide to switch up Norman's backstory even more, making it now even more convoluted. Just not an entertaining film, sadly. It's a shame because this film came at a pivotal moment in Perkins' life. This was his directorial debut, and it was during this film that he was diagnosed with HIV. He would later die from AIDS-related pneumonia 6 years later. I think the diagnosis affected him very much because during this film, all the cast and crew said what a pleasure Perkins was to work with and that they had so much fond memories of him. But then a couple of years later, Mick Garris said after directing Psycho 4 that Perkins was the most difficult actor he had ever worked with. Makes me think with two vastly different assessments of him that something must have changed, and I can only think of his diagnosis, but I could be wrong. In second place, controversially, is Psycho. I know, shocking, even for me, because I usually always put the first film first. Released in 1960 and directed by Alfred Hitchcock with a screenplay by Joseph Stefano, based on the 1959 novel of the same name by Robert Bloch. In it, a Phoenix secretary embezzles $40,000 from her employer's client, goes on the run, and checks into a remote motel run by a young man under the domination of his mother. After my most recent rewatch, I realized I'm not as impressed by this film as I once was when I was younger. A lot of the film feels like a procedural drama as it follows the investigation into the missing character. I still love the conclusion though and how it all plays out. It's a great reveal, and I love when the psychiatrist explains it all and more is revealed about Norman. These I think are brilliant, but I've seen it a couple times now, and the more I watch it, the less it feels like a horror or thriller, even by 60s standards. It really does come off as a procedural drama most of the time to me. As I said, I feel like the investigation is the central plot. I mean, the plot says it's about a woman on the run, but it's really not. She dies at the start. Her story starts it off, but the main story is about trying to find her and what happened to her and the money, and less about her and what she did. The score, however, by Bernard Herrmann is still brilliant and iconic and 100% embodies that horror thriller essence. It really amplifies all the moments in the film where I question the genre of the film. Then I hear those notes and I'm like, oh yeah, it's a thriller. And in first place, controversy, many will kill me for this, is Psycho 2, released in 1983 and directed by Richard Franklin and written by Tom Holland. It's the sequel to the 1960 film and the second entry in the Psycho series. Set 22 years after the first film, it follows Norman Bates after he is released from the mental institution and returns to the house and Bates Motel to continue a normal life. However, his troubled past continues to haunt him. I know, it's probably a blasphemous, unpopular opinion, but it's mine and it's honest, so I'm saying it. But I enjoyed this way more than the original. I'm not sure I've said that before about films. I went into this expecting utter garbage. I was anticipating it. After all, making sequels to classics doesn't usually go very well, but I actually love this film. I love the story. It makes complete sense. I love watching Norman's mental stability slowly slipping away. I love how characters outside of him are waging a war over his sanity just as he is fighting one internally. I was hooked waiting to see how it would all unravel. It's more brutal than the original, and those brutal moments come so suddenly and are so in your face that they are very effective and took me by surprise, but in a good way. They got strong reactions from me, which is something I want when watching horror films. I didn't feel the final twist was necessary or a smart idea to have in the film, but I'm not going to complain about it either because I had such a fun time with this film, which I was not expecting. And there you have my ranking of the Psycho franchise. I know y'all are gonna drop dislikes and nasty comments on me for putting Psycho second and not first, but you didn't come to this video to hear a consensus video. You came to hear my personal feelings, and I'm not gonna lie. Psycho 2 is my favorite Psycho film, and I will stand by that. If you don't like it, not my problem. But that doesn't mean I don't want to hear your rankings, so comment below and tell me how you personally rank these films. I would love to know your thoughts on these films. I can hear Mother calling, so I better finish this up and run before she goes a little mad, because we all go a little mad sometimes. Thank you for tuning into this Spooktober video, and thank you as always to my amazing patrons for always being so supportive of my content. I am off, but you guys remember, Mother always knows best.